Let's chat a little bit before we do the official start. Icebreakers.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Village Pod with Dr. Naz. Today, we have a fascinating guest, Dr. Rikki Mullen, and we're going to talk about sex. Okay, Dr. Rikki Mullen is actually a board-certified internal medicine physician who is now doing sex and relationship therapy. I have so many questions for you. You are a double Trojan. You represent, fight on. We're all USC students here. Actually, just one today. Hi, Blake. Dr. Mullen graduated from USC and then USC Keck Medical School and did her residency at Cedars-Sinai, a quite impressive background. And now she's combining hard science with therapeutic tools to help couples, thrive in their relationships and have really good sex. So we're going to talk about sex in front of my students today, which will be very comfortable for everyone. Hi, Dr. Rikki. Welcome to the pod.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for having us in your beautiful home. We're on Kismet Ranch. I'm going to say Kismet because that's very Turkish. We use Kismet a lot in the Turkish language. It's like everything is, up to the divine. It's kind of a Kismet for me to be here too, because I don't know if I told you this. About 12 years ago, I pitched your husband, Seamus, to the Dr. Oz show when I was a medical researcher there, and he was on the show, which is so cool. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for being here.
We will come back. It's so nice. I want to start off with asking you how you ended up on this beautiful piece of land.
So, it's a funny story.
From the beginning.
So I met my husband at the Hoffman process. This is my second marriage. And I had gone to the Hoffman process. If you're not familiar with what it is, are you?
I am, but
okay, but
please
maybe
tell
people
us.
who are listening are not. It's a deep dive therapeutic retreat, and you go into your patterns, where they came from, either in direct relation to like direct mimicking of your parents or in opposition to your parents. So an example would be if your mom was always late somewhere, you might find that you always have to get somewhere 10 minutes early and you're really anxious about it. So that would be like a pattern, for instance. Or you might find that you're always late. You mimic it exactly. Mm-hmm. And so you look into your patterns, where they come from, why you do them, and you go through this week-long process that is absolutely incredible. No cell phones. You go by your childhood nickname. It is an amazing experience. And about a month before I went to the Hoffman process, my best friend, who's a realtor, sent me a link to this home. And I didn't realize it. Like, I looked at it, it was gorgeous.
Yeah.
Loved it, loved, the nature and the land, but I didn't think anything of it. And so now I'm sitting at the Hoffman process, and they guide you through a lot of visualizations where when you're on your left road, you're kind of living life out of alignment in your old patterns. And when you're on the right road, you are living life in alignment in the patterns that serve your highest. Mm-hmm. And when I was on the right road, I kept seeing myself here in this house, not realizing I had ever seen the house before. Like, it had been burned into my subconscious. And there were so many animals. There were like horses and cows and goats and sheep and birds and chicken, all this stuff. And so I would come out of these visualizations and I'd shake my head and blink my eyes and I'd be like, that is so far
crazy.
From my reality. I was living prior to that in the Alphabets in the Palisades. So really cute neighborhood, but like this idea of having land and animals was not anything close to my reality that I was living. About a year later, well, I guess it was 7 months later, Seamus and I actually did something totally crazy, which, as you know, I actually work under the coaching umbrella, so certified in relationship therapy and sex therapy, but as a relationship coach and with all the understanding that I have of relationships, would not advise anyone to do this, but we dated for 3 weeks. And then we got married.
Are you serious?
Yeah, and I guess I knew him for about 5 or 6 months.
That is crazy.
In total, yeah.
Were you friends before you started dating?
Yeah, I knew we were friends, but we didn't have like a friendship. Like we knew each other. We were acquaintances, and then we dated there anyway. So
that is so crazy. You just knew.
I knew, yeah. So right after we got married, literally 2 or 3 days later, I tapped him on the shoulder, as I do, tap tap. And I said,
husband,
I
listen.
husband, I realized I've seen our house. And he was like, tell me about it. And I said, I can show you. The house was no longer on the market, but I found the listing. I showed it to him. And it turned out that the person who was living here had decided to stay. He took it off the market.
Okay.
And so we reached out and asked if we could move here. And he said, funny you should ask. I actually just sold my business and I need to get out of California for tax reasons.
It was meant to be.
And within, again, another 3 weeks, we sold, he was actually renting a place in Malibu.
Yeah.
I owned my place. So we sold my place. His rental happened to be ending right then. And then we combined homes and moved here.
It was Kismet. Was it named Kismet Ranch then?
We named
Did you name
it? Yeah, because we have so many synchronicities in our life.
So
And
beautiful.
so we named it Kismet, yeah.
Also, you're crazy to marry someone after dating for 3 years.
Yeah.
Well, what
weeks.
made you?
Yeah, it was crazy.
What made
crazy.
you know that he was your person?
I just knew. And again, I would never advise this of anyone. I have some clients. So I work mostly with couples and then people who are married and in relationship on an individual basis. But I do have a handful of people who come to me who are single women. Who are dating. Sometimes they're like, I just want to do what you did. I want to meet somebody and get married in 3 weeks. And I always say, don't.
Please don't do that.
Don't do that. It's the best decision I've made.
Don't do what
and I'm
I've
so
done.
grateful. But the honeymoon period in a relationship is anywhere from 2 months to 2 years.
Yeah.
And in that honeymoon period is when people are putting their best foot forward. This is me at my best.
Yeah.
Sometimes we're wearing a mask. We haven't really figured out how do we resolve conflict? How do we really communicate about the hard things? And so I always recommend that you take that time to get through the honeymoon period and see what is it like to work through conflict with this person? What is it like to move through hard moments with this person? So I didn't have that with him when we got together. We were full on in the
honeymoon
phase of dopamine driven love and everything feels so good. But there was something different when I met him. There was a magnetism that I had never felt before in my life.
Meant to be.
Yeah, and it's the best decision I've made. And to this day, I always call him my life partner. I call him my partner. And he's always like, can you call me your husband? He really wants to be called my husband. And I was like, but you can get rid of husbands. And you're my life partner. You're forever.
I love that.
To me, it's so much stronger.
Than just husband. That's so crazy. I want to ask you about this whole life transition that you've had. Yeah. So you're no longer practicing as a physician.
Yeah.
You left the profession. Why?
When I was 37 years old, which was 2021, I had a breast cancer scare. I was one of the first to get the COVID vaccine. So I got the COVID vaccine pretty much immediately, right? It was all physicians that got it first.
Yeah.
So when I got my vaccine, 2 months later, I noticed that I had a lymph node in my left armpit.
Swollen.
Sign of breast cancer.
Yes.
So it's not going away for 2 months. It's not tender. It's hard. It's, I'm a doctor. So I was like, all right, I'm going to go get this checked out.
Yeah.
I went and saw a breast surgeon. I had an ultrasound. She said, there's nothing there. That's just a reactive node, probably from the COVID vaccine. Then it came out that this was a side effect of the vaccine later on. So it was like, okay, now we know. But she said, on your right side, there's a mass.
Oh my God, you went in for the left and then they found they found a mass on the right side.
Yeah, and no family history of breast cancer. I was so healthy. My kids were really young at the time, 2 and 5. And I figured, okay, whatever, it's nothing. I'm not going to worry about it. It's probably just a fibroadenoma, benign lesion. And I didn't think much of it. And then 6 months go by and I'm past that 6-month mark where I'm supposed to have the follow-up.
Okay.
So they told me, come back and follow up. Now I'm a doctor, I'm a mom, I'm busy.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I don't have time to go
follow up,
take care of my health, right? As all mothers know, we're so busy taking care of everyone else. Everything else. I put it aside. And then within a week of this, just passing the 6-month mark, I diagnosed a couple of my patients who had no family history of breast cancer and they were very young and had no reason to have breast
mutation,
cancer.
No.
None of that. Yeah. And I diagnosed them with breast cancer.
Because you do their breast exams?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and send them for their, routine imaging
Yeah.
and all of that. And so when I saw this, I was like, you know what? It feels like a sign. Maybe I'm supposed to go get this checked out. So I went in, and the doctor says to me, "Come back in 6 months." And I'm like, "Gosh, I do not want to come back in."
When you go
6
in, what do they
months.
do? Do they give you a mammogram? Do they give you?
It was she was using ultrasound.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't want to go back again.
I know.
So I looked at her and I was like, I had both my babies naturally. I grew up with 3 brothers. I
Yeah.
pride myself on having a very high pain tolerance.
Yeah.
So I said, you know what? Can you just do the biopsy right now? Just needle biopsy. We'll see that it's nothing, and I can just be done with this.
Yeah.
And she said, yeah. She calls me up 2 days later. She says, I have really good news. It's not cancer. She goes, I have bad news. It could be cancer, and it has to come out immediately.
What does that even mean?
So
it didn't come back malignant.
Yeah, what they saw was something called a papillary lesion.
Okay.
And that papillary lesion has a 5 to 20% chance of being cancer. So they can't leave it in you. They have to remove it. I went in to that surgery one person, and I came out another. The best way I can describe it is I went in kind of this people pleaser, rules follower, goody two shoes, and in denial that I was in absolute misery in my life, that to the outside world seemed absolutely perfect. Married, I have this great career.
Yeah.
I have 2 beautiful children who are absolutely amazing. And I had this white picket fence home and the perfect neighborhood. Everything on the outside screamed, you should be happy. And on the inside, I would wake up every day going through the hamster wheel.
Yeah.
And just going through the motions, feeling exhausted and miserable every day of my life. And I'm 37 years old. I'm at the most vibrant time in my life. When I came out of the surgery, it was this clear message came through. And I was not somebody who I would say is spiritual or super connected to my intuition or anything like that at that time. A clear message came through it that was essentially, you can choose to continue living your life this way, but you'll get cancer and you'll die.
Oh my goodness.
Or you can choose to live your life in alignment, and you can actually live in this lifetime. And I chose the latter. And so it meant really looking at my life and making some changes. And so within 2 months of that surgery, I left my marriage. And within 6 months of that surgery, I left my career as a physician.
This is so funny. You're telling me this. I went through something so similar 3 weeks ago. I breastfed 2 babies, and I don't recognize my breasts anymore. That's another conversation. But I kind of have a grasp of them. Watching TV, I felt like a little lump on my right breast. It was moving around like a little small lump. And my mom's a breast cancer surgeon. I text her and she's like, you're so young. Same thing. No history, no gene mutation. You're so young. It's a fibroadenoma. Don't worry. Go get it checked. So I get a mammogram. I get an ultrasound. And they say, most likely a fibroadenoma, but we still have to do the biopsy. So waiting for that biopsy, getting the biopsy, waiting for the results, it was so excruciating. I'm in the clear. Thank God my doctor called me. But the whole scare, or being in those waiting rooms with I'm gonna cry, all these other women in gowns, and some of them don't have the same good news that I got. It was a whole week, and I can totally understand how it made you rethink your entire life. I didn't have that kind of my life, I need to change things, but it kind of made me realize I have to be more present with my kids. That was a weird, because work is so, I'm a working mom, my husband, my 2 kids, life is crazy, going through the motions. The routines are insane. And when I'm at home with my kids, I don't stop working. Almost the phone is always there, and I'm always glancing. That changed for me in a weird way.
Beautiful.
Because I knew I was going to be around, but that brief week where what if I'm not around? It was so difficult.
Exactly.
So I totally understand how that made you feel and made you want to change everything.
Yeah. And I had a week also between, and I don't think I mentioned the results, but it came back not cancer, it was high risk.
Yeah.
And that's why I got that message that, it would come back as cancer. But now I know with absolute certainty that I will never get it because I changed my life.
You just know it.
Yeah.
Who was in your village back then when you got these news, when you were going through this transition, leaving your profession? Who was holding you up? Nobody but me.
It was a very lonely time. Yeah. It's so funny because I was such a different, like I almost consider myself a different person then. I always say if you took me then and you took me today and you put us next to each other, we're just like two completely different women. And that woman that I was very hyper independent, very strong, like lived a lot on the surface, didn't really know herself. And again, like followed all the rules, built a life that society told her would make her happy, And I always say if she talked to me today, she'd look at me and be like, that one's a little crazy, but whatever.
I love it. I love it. I mean, you've put in so much work becoming a doctor. Like I'm familiar from my parents, but also from my friends who are just, becoming attendings. It's, we're like 35 and finally they're like, you put in all that time.
Yeah.
Did you grieve that a little bit?
I think it was more like the societal and external expectations of me, and a lot of people saying I was crazy
To leave the profession.
to leave it. Yeah. Ultimately, when I had this kind of awakening after the surgery, I recognized that the things that weren't in alignment and that were also almost like toxic in a way had to leave my life. And so what I was really at that point struggling with was I was working for a large institution, medical system, as a primary care doctor. They would give us these benchmarks to hit. And it was really hard for me because I was like, they want me to go through this list of questions and they're giving me 15 to 30 minutes with each patient. And where is the art of medicine here? This is why I went into medicine, because I truly believe, like, I am a healer, I am an empath, I want to help people. But suddenly I was being put into, they were trying to turn me into a robot, right? Which is what I felt. It was driving me crazy. So I would still try to operate in the way that I could operate with the art of medicine within this system that's very regimented, very benchmark, very checkmark oriented. But it wasn't really, just wasn't aligning.
Didn't feel like medicine.
The way they treated their doctors within the system, I felt there was no regard for the doctors. It was like we were pawns that could be replaced. They just didn't care.
Yeah.
It's very interesting, actually, because I had applied for another job at another institution. I got the job, and I was actually about to start working there right before I left medicine. I had this realization of how broken the system was. And
patients feel it too, trust me.
yeah, I know.
I, as a patient, feel it.
Yeah.
I teach health communication at USC. And this is what I studied. You should come to my class because I do talk about how people are so anti-doctor without realizing they need to be anti-hospital. Like they need to be anti-business because doctors are there. They put in the time and the years to heal you. They're just not given the opportunity. Yeah. Like we talk about the ritual between a doctor and a patient where the doctor, like the healing happens when the doctor examines the body through touch. The last 3 doctor's appointments I had, I was not examined.
I told Seamus last night, we had some friends over for dinner, and I was talking to them a little bit about my transition as well from leaving the medical system. And I said, it's so interesting because in the Medicare annual exam, there's no touching of the patient. The physical exam is not a part of it. And I'm like, it boggles my mind. It's a list of questions you go through.
Yeah.
So I just think it's very interesting. And so the system wasn't really working for me. And then you've got these fluorescent lights and white coats, and it's so sterile and it's so cold. And so when I got this other job offer, suddenly I had this realization. So I thought, you know what, I want to help heal the system.
Yeah.
So I called them up. I called up HR and I said, hey, I want to thank you so much for the job, but I want to propose something else. I'd love to come do health services research and quality improvement research. And what I want to look at is the ways in which doctors are treated and their quality of life. And then I want to look at how that then translates to the doctor's presence with patients and how that translates to improved patient outcomes. And they laughed at me.
Of course, they don't want you to do that. You know?
So I said, thank you,
Pass.
but I cannot take the job. And I hung up. And that was when I left medicine. And I was kind of like, oh my gosh, did I just make the hugest mistake? I've worked so hard for this. And when I got home, this is the most wild thing. In my mailbox, no joke, I open it up, I pull out a magazine, and on it, a huge stamp that says physician burnout. It says why the primary care system is broken and it's going to fail. It was one of these medical magazines. And it was like a sign from the universe that you made the right choice.
Yeah.
Don't even worry about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fascinating to hear it coming from an actual doctor who left a profession.
Yeah.
Like the healthcare system would make a talented doctor like you leave it.
It was just
Couldn't exist in it anymore.
I couldn't, yeah.
Well, you're still healing people though in a
Yes.
different way. So tell me about this new field you're in and what you did to get here.
Absolutely. So being somebody who went to medical school, I'm super type A. I love to learn. I feel like I could be a student forever. It's,
Yep.
Another reason, aside from helping people, that I went into medicine was that it was a lifelong learning career. When I made this transition over, I studied everything I could get my hands on: sex, love, relationships, and a bunch of trauma healing modalities and therapeutic modalities. I've taken a combination of somatics, internal family systems, emotionally focused therapy, life coaching, spiritual life coaching, sex, love, and relationship coaching, tantra. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. And I've had some incredible teachers. And then what I do is I take a very intuitive and personalized approach working with my clients, just combining all of these. I kind of consider myself a synthesizer.
Yeah.
Like I take all the modalities that I've learned and in real time in the moment, start utilizing these modalities to help people either understand why they're in the position they're in, why they're in the patterns they're in, why they feel the way they feel, what are the tools that can help them to make change that lasts and to help them communicate and to find happiness and freedom.
So important. I'm going to get into it. We're going to talk about sex. Yay. Well, when I told my girlfriends that I was going to come do this pod with you, everyone had so many questions. So I made a little list. Some are personal, some are from friends, but I think these are issues that, well, I'm going to speak from a woman's perspective, but these are issues that married women with kids have when they are trying to be intimate with their partner. Tell me about why sex changes so much after marriage and kids.
So after marriage and kids, well, specifically after kids, right?
Yeah.
What happens is, first of all, when you're pregnant, you've dedicated your body to creating life, right? So your body is no longer yours. Like your resources are going to growing this baby, and your body is shifting and changing in that. And then many women after will also breastfeed, right? So now your body is just being given to another being, and it's beautiful, but it's also taxing. It's also draining, it can be really exhausting.
Yeah.
And so there's this phenomena that happens after you have a baby where whether or not you're breastfeeding, you really are touched out.
I have it here. So touched out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so touched
So you've
out.
been like all day, mommy, touching.
Pick me
right?
up,
Yeah.
pick me up, rough house with my son.
Yeah, so you get all the
hands on you
cuddles,
all
the
day.
hands. Yeah. And by the end of the day, you've gotten your oxytocin. Like what is sex? It's we're connecting. And in this connection, there's this flood of hormones. There's oxytocin, there's endorphins, there's dopamine, all the feel-good hormones, right? But if you've gotten your oxytocin fix all day, at the end of the day, it's like, I don't need to be touched anymore.
No oxytocin for you, husband.
Yes. So from the woman's perspective, that happens.
Stay away.
Yeah.
Healthy distance.
Exactly. I've been touched out. I've given of myself to everybody all day. I have no more to give.
No.
That's one thing that happens.
That's me. Yeah.
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 And it's very common.
Yeah.
The other thing that happens is stress, right? So Emily Nagoski, she has this incredible book, Come As You Are.
Okay.
And she wrote a second one, which I'm blanking on the title, which I actually haven't read yet. But in her first book, she talks about how our nervous system is constantly using all five senses and our thoughts, beliefs, and stories that we carry in our systems to look around and say, am I a yes to turn on or am I a no to turn on? So is this an accelerator or is it a brake? And so knowing your turn-ons and your turn-offs is very important,
Okay.
right? So when you have children, stress becomes a big brake. That's my nervous system is overwhelmed. And there's just too much going on right now. I am a brake to this. I am a no. So when you understand your accelerators and your brakes within a relationship, you can actually set yourself up for a successful sexual life with your partner.
Okay.
But if you don't, you might be running on high stress and not even aware that all of this stress from, yes, it's beautiful to be a mother, but it's also incredibly stressful. So all this stress from being mom, from working, et cetera, is pushing on my brakes. And it doesn't matter how much I push on the gas, the brakes are too strong.
Okay.
Right?
And how do we not do that?
Yeah.
How do we fix that?
Yeah, I'm going to talk about that. I want to talk about one other phenomena that happens,
please.
which is essentially, and this is more from the man's perspective,
Okay.
is some men really struggle once their wives become mothers to not view their wife as the mother. And it kills their sex life.
This is interesting. I don't have this problem, but I never thought about this either. It's like you're the mom now and your body is like sacred. It's meant to be, you know, you're meant to breastfeed and grow the kids, but you're no longer a sexual body.
Exactly. So those are kind of three main reasons that sex starts to struggle after kids.
Yeah.
So how do you fix it? So one, with being touched out, and even with the second one, with the stress. First of all, just knowing that sex is actually amazing for you. It's incredible for your health.
You sound like my husband. This is good for you. It'll heal you.
It is. It's good for your heart. It's good for your blood pressure.
He
It's
sends
good
me
for stress and
DMs. He sends me
anxiety.
Instagram posts or like, you know, male sperm cures this. I'm like, he's sending it to me. And I'm like, okay, honey, I get it.
You're like, I'm
but
good.
like, I'm tired.
I'm tired. Yeah. So there's a couple things, you can do. So first of all, the couples that have long-lasting sex lives, they do one thing.
Okay.
And it's not, they don't have the most amazing sex. They don't have the craziest sex.
Okay.
What they have is they prioritize sex. So, and every relationship has
harder
two
to do.
components.
Okay.
Okay, so there's eroticism that's like, I want to rip your clothes off. I love you. Like, I want to
Yeah.
have sex with you.
Yeah.
And then there's companionship. That's, I love you. You're my best friend. I love hanging out with you.
Yeah, roommates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And both have to be in balance.
Okay.
In order for a relationship to be successful, right? Like if you're just best friends, you're
that's not
missing
a
the
marriage.
eroticism.
Yeah.
And if you're just having sex, but you have no
Relationship.
fun hanging
Yeah.
out, then you may as well just have a hookup. Like it doesn't need to be your
You
husband.
don't have to have this social agreement. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is so interesting because it makes me think of like, if you have a good sex life, then you have higher tolerance for your partner's, annoying bits, if that makes sense. If I find myself like we're in a rut, like the kids have taken over, we are not prioritizing sex, then I'm like getting more and more annoyed at my husband and the little things. But if we are having sex, then like I'm in this mood where I like don't care if you walk with your shoes on in the house. I do care. That was just an example. But you know what I mean?
Well, because so what happens is, and this brings me back to kind of the hormones that are involved in sex, right? So when we have sex, first of all, you're having an incredibly intimate and vulnerable moment with your husband, right? And then you also are releasing all these incredible hormones. It's the endorphins, which is it's our body's natural morphine, right?
Yeah.
It's like a feel-good hormone. And then you have all the oxytocin, which is the I love you hormone. And then you've got the dopamine, which is that addiction hormone. So it's like, I want you and I want more of you, right? So when you're having sex, you're going to be less annoyed with your partner for walking into the house with shoes. You'll be like, hey, honey, take them off over there in a more flirtatious way.
Yeah, instead of like, get the fucking shoes off. How many times have I told you?
Because on a subconscious, on a personal level, on a physiologic level, you're in this great state, right? You've got all these good hormones flooding through your body, or if not in that moment,
Yeah.
right? They've been
They
there.
linger, yeah.
Yeah. And you're associating it with your partner. Again, this is our nervous system's working. So then in a subconscious way, your system is like, oh, this person brings me stress relief, right?
Yes.
Which is another funny thing, because when we go back to how do we change this? So the first thing is prioritize it.
Okay. How do you prioritize it? You
You
talk about, I read your
set-
ebook. I did my
Yes.
research. My husband was like, great.
You
This
set
is
a
good.
sex date. So you literally set a sex date. You're like, this is in our calendar. You put it in your calendar. It is non-negotiable. This is when we're having sex. I hear this all the time from couples, but then it's not spontaneous. I'm like, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
But there's something to setting a sex date. There's
Okay.
anticipation, and anticipation is sexy. You can flirt during
Is
the
it?
week. You can sext during the week.
Okay. I love that part where you put it in your calendar. Your aunt does that. She told me. She probably never told you, but they have. Yeah. So you know, she was like, you put it in your calendar. For me, anticipation kind of kills the joy.
Okay, so this is another great thing that you're noticing.
Or like, what is it? The sexiness of it.
Or is it anticipation, or is it the
Stop
the
laughing. Everyone's laughing. Stop laughing.
Is it the
Learn.
scheduled nature of it? Is it the lack of spontaneity or the anticipation?
Lack of spontaneity.
Yeah. So they're different.
Okay.
So anticipation is, I'm going to flirt with you, right? Like what are you going to do for me, honey, to get me like all hot and bothered and excited for our sex date, right?
Okay.
It's a little bit of flirtation.
How is he going to wait?
building.
Incapable of that, but yeah.
Yeah, and by the way, you make him wait, right? Be like, no, you've got to
You know,
wait.
that's what my name means. It's like hard to get, literally. Hard to please is what my name means.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's an interesting
so just,
name.
make
Okay.
him wait. But set this sex date.
Okay.
And set your, I like to say set 3 hours, right?
Okay.
You don't have to have sex for all 3 hours, but sex is more than just penetration. It's the foreplay. It's even the anticipation leading up to it, right?
Okay.
So you set this time. You set enough time that it's not something you're rushing through.
Okay.
You set the kids with grandma or school or whatever. You also figure out what are my accelerators, what are my brakes, what are your accelerators, what are your brakes, what turns you on. And if you don't know how to talk about it, I really recommend that you look at Jaya's erotic blueprint
Homework.
quiz.
Take notes.
Yes.
Okay.
It's a quiz that you can
All
take
right.
online.
We have to link it. Okay.
And it's great because it tells you, who are you in the bedroom? What turns you on? What gets you excited? And it's a great launching pad for having conversation about sex.
I have 18 questions based on just this little section. How do I prioritize these questions?
Just the mere act of talking about it gets people excited about it. So I've sat in sex therapy courses, and the sex therapist at the front is like, half of you are going to be sexting with your partners during the course today,
Because
right?
you're going to get all hot and bothered
Yeah.
by the content.
So the
I
mere
get it.
act of hey, honey, let's plan this sex date. Let's talk about what our turn-ons are, our accelerators, our brakes. Let's set us up for success. You see, you're prioritizing it. You're building the anticipation. You're understanding, who am I in the bedroom? Who are you in the bedroom? What gets you excited?
Anything.
What gets me excited?
That's my problem. Let me tell you my problem.
Yes.
My husband's very sexually, he can get aroused so fast. Drop of a hat, he's ready. I wink at him, he's like, whoa, okay. That's where he's at. For me, I have a whole mental checklist I need to go through to be ready for sex. This could be something as, stupid as I got to put the dishes away. I got to sort the things out for morning routine and for tomorrow. I need to look good. I need to feel clean. It has to be like this and that. And then he's like, but we're never going to have sex because you're never going to be in that perfect state.
But what happens when you're in that state? Why do you want to be there?
I don't know. I'm very type A.
You know why you want to be, I'll tell you. I think I
me.
know why you want to be there. Because this is the most incredible thing about sex is it's a journey.
Okay.
But the only way you get to go on the journey is if you're not in your mind. It's if you're in your body. And if you can set up everything to be done and out of the way, and you don't have to worry about do I smell funny? Does my hair look terrible? Whatever. I mean, by the end, you'll be all messy anyways.
Yeah, I worry less about that, but more about the checklist.
Yeah, because when the checklist is off your mind, you can be present. You can drop in. You get
Yeah.
to go on the journey of sex.
But then how do it feels so hard to get there. Is there a way to get there without worrying about the checklist?
You can ask yourself a series of questions before, which is what will happen if I don't do this checklist right now? Nothing.
Right? Nothing. Okay.
And what's the benefit of not doing the checklist right now?
Having sex with my husband.
Yes.
That's
And what's the benefit of having sex? You get to be less stressed. You get
That's
the
true.
endorphins, you get the oxytocin, you get the dopamine, and you get to connect with your husband.
It's so funny because like afterwards, I'm always like, oh, this was so worth it. Why am I making it so hard to get here?
Yeah.
You know, just maybe
Yeah.
reminding myself
And just
of the
checking
end
in.
result.
So this is where knowing your accelerators and your brakes can be really, really helpful, right?
Okay, yeah.
And actually, Emily shared this story in one of the trainings I did with her, which I love, and I'll share it with you. It was this woman, and she's laying in bed. She's supposed to have a sex date with her husband that night. They've got young kids. She's exhausted. She's like, I am not doing, this is the last thing I want to do.
Yeah.
And her husband walks up to the bedroom. Kids are out of the house. And in his arm, he's got the laundry basket with all the laundry folded, no shirt on. And he's like, hey, babe, what can I do for you? And she was like, you can jump
can
in
do
bed
that.
right now.
No, exactly. No, that's me.
Yeah, she was so excited, right? So knowing our accelerators and brakes is helpful.
Topless laundry
Yes.
folding. I didn't know I had that fantasy now. So we have to act on
There
that.
you go. Yeah, and also
So
actually,
weird.
since you mentioned fantasy share can be a really fun thing to do with your partner too, to start noticing what are the things that kind of turn me on or excite me. And so what does fantasy share look like? Fantasy share, there are 3 rules for fantasy share. Number 1, nothing's off limits. Because number 2, it never has to be done. It's a fantasy. It's a fantasy, so anything
Phew.
can be shared.
Yeah. Good to know that we don't have to act
Yes.
on it. We just have to know about it.
Yeah. Because also in sex, consent and boundaries are of utmost importance. So
Okay.
if you're ever
Yeah, of
crossing
course.
your own boundaries, you're not safe and you
No.
can't enjoy sex.
Yeah.
So the second part of that fantasy share never has to be done, but you're free to share. Like you can share your intimate inner world with your partner. And then the third one is because it never has to be done and
Yeah.
nothing's off limits,
Okay.
no judgments
Of course.
allowed.
Of course.
So you're just like, tell me more. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
That's interesting. Talking about this stuff is hard for me because I think it's cultural. I didn't grow up here. I grew up in Turkey. The first 18 years of my life and my first relationships were there. And culturally, we don't talk about sex. Women don't talk about sex. They don't talk about their desires or fantasies. Maybe things have changed. I haven't been there in 20 years, but I doubt it. Or you never act upon what you want. You never pursue the guy. Like you always have to be pursued. You know what I mean? You don't take initiative. So in my adult life, I still struggle, even though my husband knows anything and everything about me. I feel not shame, but maybe a little bit to verbalize this stuff. And then I categorize it as cringe,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, so there's a couple ways to get past that. So first of all, before we have any thoughts up here, everything shows up in our body as a sensation. So when you're like in that, and you even describe it that way, you're like cringe, right? So when you're there, if you can pause and be with the feeling in your body that's coming up in your body, and then you just kind of breathe in and you close your eyes and you remember the very first time you ever felt that feeling.
I have to think about this.
Yeah. And you don't have to
Okay.
do it right now necessarily.
Homework.
Yeah. And I can remind you too.
Please do.
By the way, sometimes it's not related to anything sex at all.
Yeah.
It could be like completely different. It could be you sitting in class and feeling like you're saying the wrong thing, right?
Okay.
So then you see, when is the first time I felt this feeling? And you go back in time to that. You can actually ask a little question before that, which is, what does this feeling want me to know? Why is it here for me? And you let the feeling speak to you. So it's some sort of protection usually.
Okay.
So protecting you from doing something wrong or
Okay.
saying something that is not acceptable, right? And then you go even farther back.
Okay.
And you say, when's the first time I felt this? And you visit yourself as a child when you felt that for the first time, and you parent her, you reparent her. So you meet her and she might say to you something like, I said the wrong thing in class, I'll never speak again about this.
I actually know.
Yeah.
I know. But this is so unrelated.
Yeah.
6th grade.
Yeah.
I've always been such a good student, like student for life. I'm still in school. And I always raise my hand and I like to talk. I like to participate. One of my teachers who loved me and I even went to her wedding. I was a 6th grader. She said something about the value of being concise. After I excitedly contributed something, she put me down, and I still remember that feeling of being so heartbroken. It's like, I thought you liked me. I contributed because no one else is talking. Like, let me add value to your class. And then you judge me for talking too much.
Yeah.
You
And
know?
so the practice is you go back in time and you meet
Okay.
that 6th grade self
Yeah.
as your adult self, and you let her know who you are.
Okay.
And you tell her you came there to offer her nourishment and support and love. And maybe you stand up to the teacher for her. You're like, I'm an adult and I'm here now. And everything you shared is beautiful. I love your enthusiasm, right?
Yeah.
And then you stand up to the teacher for her if that feels good.
It's like,
And
you're a bad, just kidding.
or maybe you set up a stage at the front of the classroom and you say, you're just going to talk and everybody's going to listen because we love your enthusiasm. So you give her that experience.
Okay.
And then the next step is when she feels settled, when she feels comfortable, when she feels heard and seen and understood and supported and loved and not ashamed, then you fast forward either to a present day circumstance or a future conversation with your husband about sex.
Okay.
And from that energy, you recognize the qualities of this energy that this 6th grader now has. Oh, I'm celebrated for my enthusiasm. I'm celebrated for sharing my inner world, right? Then from that energy, and you feel that energy kind of flood your body, you breathe it in, you imagine yourself having a conversation with your husband around sex. And by the way, if it's hard for you to be like, where do I start? That's where that blueprint, the erotic blueprint quiz, can be really helpful because it gives you everything to talk about. So that's why I'll send my couples to do that quiz when they're like, I don't even know what I like, or I don't know how to talk about this. Well, here's like this great quiz you can take. You can do a free version or like a relatively cheap version.
Yeah.
And just a great launching pad, and it also opens up possibilities. By the way, it brings me to another point that I want to mention, which is that sex is wired into our nervous systems. So what happens when you're in relationship, when you're in a partnership, is you know the way to orgasm. You're like, oh, this is the path to orgasm. I always orgasm when I'm like on top, or I always orgasm when I'm, in this position, whatever. So if you know the path to orgasm, sex in a long-term relationship can become monotonous.
Yeah, you always prefer that, that'll
it's like,
get us there.
This is the way to orgasm.
Yeah.
So if you can actually start shifting sex, because when things become monotonous, they become boring, and then people are less inclined to prioritize it.
Yes, okay.
It's boring. It feels good, but it's boring, right? It's always the same. So the goal is switch it up, try new things, be a little adventurous in your sex life.
Yeah.
And when you do that, you learn more about what you like, you expand things, you change things up. So it's not always the same.
My ex-therapist, this is like when I was 6 months postpartum after having my son, so my first kid, I found myself in a rut. I talk about this in another podcast, so I won't repeat. But it was like, who am I now that I'm married with a child? This was like my life's biggest goal. So I was in that place. And I was also 6 months postpartum. So we weren't really having sex or great sex at that time. And she was like, why don't you, get a hotel room in the city, get out of the house, spice things up. And obviously that always works, right? Like when you leave the house, you go on a date and then you go to a hotel and you remember how things were when you first met pre-kids. Great solution. Thank you very much. But how do we bring that energy to the home? Because we can't check into a hotel every time we want to spice things up a little bit when your kids are sleeping down the hallway. And talk about grandma. We don't have family in town, and we can't really have a nanny sitting on a couch when we're trying to spice things up. So how do you get into that mindset?
So there's a couple things. Number one, you mentioned kind of the beginning of the relationship, kind of a process that I'll guide my couples through when they've really kind of lost connection and touch. It's different than from the situation you were describing, but I'll have them go back and remember what is it that brought them together? And then how do they recreate those experiences, right? And so it's not necessarily about sex, but it's more likely then to drive the sex because you're back in that energy of newness. So it's a great practice. What was it that I fell in love with, right? What is it that excited me so much in the beginning? What are the great memories of when we were just in a total, love fest? It can be very helpful, and then you can recreate it. So we're going to go back to our favorite restaurant, and even the tastes of the food and the smell of the restaurant, it can bring back a flood of emotions and feelings that then when you go home, you're more likely to to have sex like you did in the beginning of the
Interesting.
union. Yeah.
You know, this made me think of, so this is when we started dating, this was 2017, the bird bikes, like the bird scooters
Yeah.
were just coming out. Now they're everywhere. I don't even know if bird is around, but we used to tandem ride. It was not allowed. It was illegal, but we would do it up and down Venice Beach and have such a fun time. So now I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
No, that,
like a
because
little
when you were talking about it, I was
scooter.
like, that's what we did for weeks. He became a scooter charger so that we could charge the scooters and they'd be outside the house ready for us to go
Yes.
first thing in the morning.
I love it.
That thrill.
And then the other thing, by the way, so you just use this word thrill,
Yeah.
right? And what is thrill? Thrill is dopamine.
Yeah.
Well, we're so inundated with dopamine nowadays because just by mere virtue of having our devices and
I
the
know, it's
social
terrible.
media and constant,
Clicking and scrolling, yeah.
Yeah, so I really recommend that people kind of try to avoid that as much as possible because dopamine
hard.
is so important for your relationship, right? So we don't want to utilize all our dopamine on scrolling and then we don't have it for our union. Dopamine is so present in the beginning of a relationship. It's what keeps us coming back, right?
Yeah.
Because it's thrilling. It's also incredibly important for having this like amazing sex life. And so how do you do it? You intentionally, there's so much intention in everything, right? To have a relationship last, there has to be intention.
Yeah.
And that takes effort.
Yes.
But it's worth it because
It's
we're
worth
pair
it.
bonded beings and love is beautiful. And to have a partner that you love being around, that you have that companionship with and that eroticism with is one of the greatest feelings that we can have, you know? Creating peak experiences once a month where you do
Once a month.
Yes, once a month where you create. So these are not necessarily sexual experiences, but it might be like we're going to go out and try surfing together.
Okay.
Right? Something new, something exciting, or we're going to, maybe it's like winter break and you're traveling somewhere brand new.
Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah.
it's not, it doesn't always have to be big and crazy. It might be that you've been excited to try caviar, but you don't have a babysitter. So you're like, we're going to do this like caviar and champagne
Tasting
night
at
at the
home.
house.
Yeah. No, I love
Right?
that.
And then how do you create these sexual experiences when your kids are in the home? I
Question, $1 million question.
There's a few different ways, right? Like I have this one couple I work with and they both work out of the house and they never have sex. And I said, have sex in the car during your lunch break, you know?
Oh my goodness.
They're in a private
Oh my
place.
goodness.
They're not like out in the street, right? I'm not
Yeah. Who
recommending
knows?
that.
Maybe they are.
But I'm like, do it when you can, right? When the kids aren't around, they also have young kids.
Yeah.
When the kids aren't around and you can, again, because it's how do we prioritize
Make it work.
sex?
Yeah.
Yeah. How do we plan it?
This actually takes me to my next question because you talked about like once a month have this experience. Is there a healthy number of times you should be having sex in a month? Is there like a magic number or is it very relationship specific?
No, if you're not having sex once a month, it's considered pretty low sex, a sexless
Yeah.
relationship.
Yeah. So once a month is a sexless relationship.
If you're no less than once a month,
So what does that mean? You don't have sex.
you don't have sex. Yeah.
I get it. You have sex once every 2 months or
Yeah.
something. Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's not sexless because you're still having sex, right?
Yeah, I get it. But it's so not frequent enough. Yeah.
And everybody has different sex drives. So this is, again, part of understanding who are you when it comes to sex, right? Now, if you have emotional blocks to sex because you've had maybe sexual trauma, or maybe there's been, infidelity in the relationship that's created a lack of safety or break in trust somehow, the emotional stuff has to be worked through in order to feel safe. Because again, sex is only good with consent and boundaries and full safety. Otherwise, sex it's terrible, and it's actually, I always tell my clients, if you are a no to sex, if your body's like, oh, hell no, I'm like, you better say no. Please do not say yes because you're trying to have more sex. Like, please do not say yes. Because if you say yes and you're a no, that now gets put on your partner and it's you that crossed your own boundaries. Because you said yes, right?
This is so important.
It breaks the trust and it breaks the connection, breaks the love that's in the relationship. So it's harmful. So I'm like, just accept the no.
Okay.
On both sides.
It's a no right now.
Yeah, it's a no right now. Okay. we can be with that, right?
No, I like that.
Yeah.
Don't try to make it happen to please your partner or to have more sex.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then everybody is, so if there's emotional stuff that you're working through, it has to be worked through.
Yeah.
But then everybody is different. People have different sex drives. So
Yeah.
what's the normal amount? This is the greatest thing about sex. When it comes to sex, there is actually no normal. There's no normal way to have sex. There's no normal number of times to have sex. There's no normal when it comes to sex. We're all normal. We're all like doing what we're doing, right?
Come as you are. Yes.
Yes, exactly. What is it that you're comfortable with? When do you want sex? When does your body want sex? Of course, when life gets busy, stressful, we're all like, whatever, you prioritize it so that it doesn't fall to the wayside. But what is normal or what is the average? There's nothing. It's what works for you.
I want to talk about cheating because you brought it up. And also a few of my friends asked me to ask you this for real. Yeah. They are all divorced with small kids because of adultery. And they all have this common story of the relationship starting with grand gestures and grand promises, a lot of show, a lot of effort and time. And then the man cheated and they all ended the relationship. And now they're all, when I tell them, oh, you're so young, date again. And they're like, I don't want to date ever again. I am done with men. I'm like, you are 34. You can't be done with men. Or when I ask them, like, let's set you up with someone, like, who are you interested in? They're like, anyone as long as they're not cheating. I'm like, that's a very low bar.
Yeah.
How does one process infidelity?
Yes.
Is there ever a way out of it?
The first thing to understand is that when infidelity happens in that moment where it's discovered, you fracture. Somebody fractures in that moment. Their whole world as they knew it, the person they trusted most, right? Especially a person who pedestaled them and adored them and gave them all this attention. Then you start to question yourself, can I trust myself? And if I can't trust myself, how can I trust anyone else? Yeah. So there's a couple things that play here. There's the fracture. In the fracture, a protector is born. If we're looking at the internal family systems framework, at the core of all of us, we're calm, courageous, confident, connected, curious, right? We're so open, we're so loving at the core of all of us. But when you fracture, a part develops and that part wants to protect you. Yeah. So in that fracture, a protector comes out that says, I am not safe in relationship. And that part works fiercely to keep you safe. And if you blend with that part, you identify with it. You're like, I can't be with anybody ever again, right? So the work is, how do I come back into finding safety and trust in myself? Because from that place, I can access that true energy that I am, that is love, that is open, that is curious, that's connected, without being walled off and blocked off and hiding from the world. Yeah. Does that make sense? Or hiding from love?
It sounds like a lot of work.
It is a lot of work, but it's work that I do with clients, and it's beautiful.
It's mostly therapy
and powerful. Yeah, and finding the right therapist to work with you. There's another aspect that you spoke of. So there's the ones that don't want to see anybody at all. They have the fierce protectors. They've blended with them. They don't trust themselves. They don't feel safe in themselves. Yeah. Again, once they trust themselves and they feel safe in themselves, then they know my picker. So this is another thing. Their picker chose somebody. How do we pick a partner? We're picking on a subconscious level. Okay. So their picker, and subconscious is what's below the surface, what we're not aware of. Their picker chose somebody that cheated on them. So once they understand what was the subconscious programming that led to that, their picker will not choose somebody who cheats on them again.
So it's really trusting your picker.
Yes.
And
trusting yourself.
Yeah.
And finding that safety. But there's another person that you described, a different kind of person after infidelity. The person that says, I'll take anybody, they can give me breadcrumbs, I don't care, as long as they don't cheat, right? And that person is living also in fear. Yeah. But they don't want to be alone, right? So they're like, I'll take anything as long as there's no cheating. So it's a similar process. And once people understand the way that we work, not only in relationship, but just as humans.
Yeah.
And so much of our decision making, so much of what we choose and what we do, it's being driven by the subconscious. That's 95% of what we do. We only have 5% that's in our conscious awareness, unless people are doing the work, and then they
Interesting.
expand that, right, on average.
Okay.
So when somebody comes out of a situation like that, first of all, you can heal from infidelity. So there's couples that stay together and are stronger
Okay.
for it and because of it. But if you choose to leave, if you're like, I'm not safe in this relationship, my partner is not aware of their choices and what they've done, my partner isn't willing to stay in this relationship with me, whatever it may be, right? For whatever reasons people choose to move on, that's fine. So you do the work outside the relationship. If you're actually like, no, my partner's aware, they're remorseful, we're all human, we make mistakes, we have parts that come out and play that aren't always in alignment with our highest, and I can have forgiveness both for myself and for my partner, and acceptance, and we can move forward, and that takes time, yes, and a lot of courage and strength, right? But it's possible, and those couples also come out very, very strong if they do the work. But both partners have to do work. And the partner who experienced the infidelity, they were cheated on, if they can do the deep work to understand what was their subconscious programming at play that allowed for that situation to happen, that actually, I would say, called in that situation. It puts you in a position of being, I'm a victim, somebody cheated on me, I'm helpless, to I am empowered.
I see.
And when I understand this, what's happening underneath the surface, and I can bring it into awareness, then I start making new choices. Then people start treating me differently. And now I'm empowered, and I'm creating my reality from a conscious place.
I love that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that'll be helpful. I want to go back to communication skills in a relationship. We talked about boundaries and we talked about, a lot of things, but I feel like I didn't know how to communicate in an intimate relationship until I met my husband. Again, coming back from that, being raised in a different culture in a different country where you've probably seen Turkish soap operas. That is not far from reality. There's a lot of drama in romantic relationships. There's a lot of, slamming doors and leaving instead of talking things through. There's a lot of silent treatment. There's a lot of guilt tripping. There's so much of that turns a relationship literally toxic. I have this really funny story from my college years. I was a sophomore. I was dating a junior. We had this explosive fight at a party. And I just darted. I just went back to my dorm room and I was hoping that he would follow me. And he didn't follow me. So I go to my room and I'm so mad at the guy. Why would he not follow me? He's an idiot. And then an hour later, I opened the door to go to the bathroom. He's sitting out there. And I'm like, what? Why didn't you follow me? And he goes, babe, you told me not to follow you. Apparently in the heat of the moment, I said, don't you dare follow me. And to him, he's respecting my choices. To me, don't you dare follow me means follow me. Because that's how I grew up.
Yeah.
So what do you prioritize in relationships when it comes to healthy communication?
Yeah. So there's a lot here. So first of all, what happens so oftentimes in relationship, because we're so intimately tied to our partners, is we expect our partners to read our mind, to know what we're thinking, and they can't.
Yeah.
No matter how intimately tied we are, right? So in a relationship, a key indicator for success is differentiation. And differentiation is I am me with my thoughts, feelings, beliefs, stories, and experiences, and you are you with your thoughts, feelings, beliefs, stories, and experiences. And does the relationship have room for both of that? And then both of our thoughts, feelings, beliefs, stories, experiences, circumstances side by side, right? So I like to think of two people going and seeing a movie and they see it completely differently.
Yeah.
They have different favorite actors. Maybe one of them hated it. Maybe one of them loved it, right? You wouldn't be like, you're wrong for that. So in a relationship, we have to make space for both experiences to be true. I'll give you a quick example of that. I have a client who had a baby and her husband went back to work.
Okay.
And he's working. And she's like, you've gone off and you're having your whole life back and you get to be around adults and you don't want to, it's like you're not even the father.
Oof.
Right? And I'm here stuck at home and dealing with all of this stuff and I feel all alone and I don't get to go anywhere and I don't get to be around people. And so what can happen in that is what I mean, like usually you'd think they start going into defenses and arguing and blowing up, right? Because they're not leaving room for differentiation.
Yeah.
In differentiation, he can be like, wow, that experience sounds really tough.
Yeah.
Tell me more about it.
Yeah.
So both are true. He felt on his world, he's like, but I am the father. I'm going off and I'm, earning money and earning a living and I'm coming home every night and I am the father.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean?
What do you mean I'm not the
Yeah. So in differentiation, we leave space for both to be true. So when you have that awareness, that helps in situations.
Yeah.
Number two, our partners cannot read our minds. So if you tell your partner, don't follow me, and your partner doesn't follow you, they're doing exactly what they were told to do.
You can't be
right?
mad at them for doing exactly what you do.
Same thing. If you're like, honey, we're out
mind-blowing
of
to me.
milk, and then your husband goes to work and he goes to the market, but he doesn't get milk, and you're like, why didn't you get the milk? Well, you didn't tell me to get the milk. I told you we're out of milk.
But you didn't tell me to get the milk.
Exactly. So
I roll, but I get it.
the third thing is that we are uniquely matched in partnership to be with partners that will actually trigger our unhealed wounds of childhood. Okay. So there's a safety in that. You are the partner that I get to experience this with so that I can heal it for myself, not so you can heal it for me. Right?
Yeah.
So you're gonna get triggered in relationship. Be expected to be triggered, be expected to have conflict. That is absolutely normal and expected. In fact, if you're not being triggered, if you don't have conflict, take a long, hard look at your relationship and figure out what's happening because you're probably not having a real intimate relationship. And knowing that when we are in a red brain state, meaning I'm triggered, I'm activated, my blood pressure's high, my heart rate's high.
Yeah. Fight or flight. Yeah.
Yeah, we can't hear each other.
No.
They've done studies on this. You're hearing, like, you don't hear what your partner's saying. So how many times, have you had an argument with your husband and you two remember the argument completely differently? He's not lying and you're not lying. It's just, again, what you've experienced
Is different.
because you didn't hear. So in those moments, you always want to take a pause. Let's take a pause. Like the way I look at it is like, wait, we're acting like children.
Yeah.
Right? We're in these adaptive, behaviors that actually don't work.
Yeah.
There are two children in the room right now. We're going to take a break. So it's not storming off. It's not the stonewalling. That stuff is not protective or healthy for a relationship. It's literally taking a pause. Let's take a pause, come back into our regulated selves, tend to ourselves. What's coming up for me? Allow the trigger to be your teacher. And then when you're in a green brain state, when you're in flow, that's when you readdress it. You don't let it go. And the way to address it is very simple. There's a script that you use.
Okay.
And this script helps to essentially make sure there's no blame, there's no passive aggressive behavior, there's no yelling or fighting or any of the behaviors that could be considered toxic or just unhelpful for a relationship. This is your opportunity to repair. And repair is like the glue of intimacy. It's what keeps us growing. It's what keeps us together. So you simply say, when you X, Y, Z, you name exactly what they did.
Okay.
So when you walked in the room, took off your coat and spoke the words, whatever they are.
Honey, I'm home.
Honey, I'm home.
I hate it. Just kidding.
The story I told myself. And when you say that, when you say the story I told myself, you're literally sharing your experience. Remember that differentiation? Both of our experiences can exist here.
Yeah.
This is my experience of it. I'm not saying it's your reality, your
This is
intention,
how I perceived it.
or your truth. This is the story I'm telling myself. So it removes the blame.
No, I love this because every time I do this with my husband, we resolve things.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the next step is, and in that I feel, and you name the feeling, not you make me feel, because nobody can make you feel anything. Our feelings live within us.
Okay.
And that feeling from within you is being triggered in this situation so that you can heal, so that you can repair, so that you can become closer with your partner and with yourself, right? Then you can also share. And when I feel that way, I react by shutting down, withdrawing, pulling away. And I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And what would be helpful is if we could have whatever, or if you could X, Y, Z, and you can make a reasonable request. It's not like what would be helpful is if you could, do the dishes, make dinner, drive the kids to school, make the beds, and make love to me,
Yeah.
right? Like that's,
Yeah.
and go to work. Like that's a lot to ask your husband
Yeah.
to do, right? But you make a reasonable request. What would be helpful is when I share my day with you,
Yeah.
if you could just reflect back to me what you're hearing, not
Yeah.
need to fix it, not
Yeah.
need to change it, just reflect it back.
Yeah. No, I like that. Just hear me out. My final question in the sex realm
Yes.
is we talked about when you become a mom, your body kind of becomes, almost like a functional object. You're feeding, you're growing, everyone needs you at all times. How do you feel sexy in your new body again?
Yeah. From you to you.
Okay.
How do you feel sexy in your body? You start being with your body. You look at your body and you do mirror work, right? Stand naked in front of the mirror.
That's hard.
And for the parts of you that you can find are beautiful, maybe your breasts are like luscious and full because they're full of milk.
Wishful, yes.
Right? In the
Or
moment
the opposite, because the milk is gone and now they're flat.
But whatever.
No, I get it, yeah.
Yeah, whatever parts of your body, maybe it's your like beautifully soft skin, right? You start to praise yourself. You start to worship yourself. The other thing that is really beautiful is wake up in the morning and caress your body. Start your morning by caressing your body. How do you want to be touched when you wake up? To feel sexy, to feel adored, to feel love from you to you.
It's like I'm always touched by kids. That's how I wake up.
Yeah.
It's like, get out of bed.
So even
give me 5.
Yeah. Yeah. So turn over and just like caress yourself,
I love that.
touch
Love
yourself, love yourself, and say kind things to yourself. And then buy yourself some sexy lingerie and take sexy pictures just for you.
Don't send them to anyone.
Yeah.
Keep them in your hidden folder.
Yeah. Allow yourself to be sexy for you, and you start building that relationship with yourself.
I want to ask a question to you, not about sex, about you and your life. So now, you're happily married, you're a mom, you have 2 kids, you have this practice, you do retreats, you do conferences. What is your life looking like right now, your day to day? I mean, you already told me this, you feel aligned finally.
Yeah.
But tell me about your life a little bit.
Yeah. So balance is really important to me. It matters a lot, especially coming from a career as being a doctor where I was working, 80-hour weeks in residency and, staying up all night in med school.
Yeah.
So balance is really important to me. So I wake up and I'll start my day typically in a few different ways. Depends how early I'm starting. I'll either start it, I have the kids every other week.
Okay.
So I don't have the kids full time.
Okay.
So if I have them, they're always my priority. So with them in the mornings, with them after school, they know that I am there all the time.
Yeah.
So it might be that depending how early I wake up, I really love to start my day if I can by feeding the animals. So we live on this ranch. We have cows, horses, goats, sheep, chicken.
Oh my goodness.
I love to start, and dogs.
They're
and
all
cats.
here. They're all around. Oh my God.
They're all here. So I like to start my day by going outside and feeding the animals. And if the sun is out, it's even better. There's research to show that if you get 20 minutes of sunlight in the morning, it's really good for your circadian rhythm. You're going to be more awake during the day and you're going to sleep better at night.
Yeah.
So I really love to start my day either that way or with a little workout.
Yeah.
So I have some exercise equipment here and I'll do a little workout.
Yeah.
And of course, I always wake up in the morning, first thing in the morning, always snuggle with my husband.
I know. That's nice, isn't it? Little cuddles.
Yes, I love the morning cuddles. And then my kids, if they're around, they might be in bed with us too, cuddling or, having breakfast with them. And then I start seeing clients and typically it's on Zoom.
Okay.
So I'll see clients. Some days it's back to back. Some days there's some breaks.
Yeah.
And then if I don't have the kids, I'm working a little bit later.
Okay.
If I do have the kids, I'm momming.
Family time.
Yeah.
I know. That's
Family time. And we'll do family game night. We'll hang out outside.
I know they're older now, so they can do family game night.
Yeah, but life is beautiful. I mean, a mix between nature, work, family.
I love that. So we're in we already told you, we told them where we are. We're like Topanga, and I can't believe you are this close to LA, but you are living this ranch life.
Yeah.
I didn't know this was possible. I have new life goals. Who is in your village today?
Yeah, so I have an incredible group of friends. I have a beautiful family. I'm actually also best friends with my ex-husband and his wife. We all get along so well.
Wait, that's amazing. Wait, that's so rare.
Yeah, it's
I love
rare.
that.
I think I attribute it to the fact that we actually did have one of those sexless relationships.
Yeah, so you were good friends.
Yes. So now we were always like friends.
Should have been
right?
besties.
And, Should have
I
always
love
been
that.
besties. And I love his wife. She's wonderful.
Oh, that's
and
wonderful.
so we have this really beautiful relationship with them. And Seamus, of course, my
Of course.
husband, is just a huge supporter. And I have the most beautiful group of girlfriends that is just, I could call on anyone in an instant and they'd be there
That's
for me
awesome.
and vice versa. Yeah.
I love that. You get along with your ex-husband and his new wife. My parents just become really good friends again after not talking to each other for 25 years. And I'd like to take credit for it because I gave them 2 beautiful grandchildren and now they found like a new purpose in life, which is interesting for me because like, what am I going to do with all my childhood trauma? Put it on the shelf. Look at your parents. They're great. So they can't communicate. So I always like tease them about it. But I think that's so beautiful because that's so healing for the kids too.
Yeah.
It's not easy, no matter how civil a divorce is or not, as kids to go through it. But I think it's so healing to see your parents still get along.
Exactly.
That's my personal little.
Yeah. And I think, and that's another thing that I do is aside from, the relationship work that I do is I also help people if they do split or if they already have split to really have amicable co-parenting relationships because all the skills that in all the, therapy work that I do around relationships applies also for co-parenting, just in there are different boundaries there, right?
Yeah.
So
That's so important. I love it. We always like to, I guess me, I always like to end an interview with 2 sections, more fun. One's a rapid fire. So we'll start with that. Whatever comes to your mind first. You already answered some of these, but let's answer them again. Okay. All right. Your favorite morning ritual?
coffee.
Great. Last thing you do before bed?
Kiss Seamus.
Favorite meal that Seamus cooks for you? Oh, we didn't tell anyone that Seamus is an
Yeah,
award-winning
he's an
chef.
incredible chef.
I bet. I'm jealous.
His paella.
Yum. Do you have a mantra?
I haven't said it in a while, but I had a prayer so when I went through my divorce and I didn't know, it was the first time in my life, especially being super type A, where I was like, I don't know what's in front of me.
Yeah.
Right? My whole life, I feel like I planned out. And so I would go, I spent a lot of time just spending time in the mountains, hiking. Yeah. And I would go to the highest point and I would say, God, source, universe, whatever I kind of felt most aligned with that day, allow all that is aligned with my highest good and the highest good for all to flow in with ease and make it so abundantly clear there is only one choice and allow all that does not serve me to shed away.
Can we steal that?
Yes.
Can we frame it? That is so beautiful.
Was very helpful, yeah.
It's like exactly what we need in
life,
life,
I was
right?
fully guided.
I love it. Yeah. I love it. Your favorite place to travel to?
We just went to Kauai. Kauai was so magical and so special. It was my first time. I've been other places in Hawaii, but it was my first time in Kauai, and I found it just to be a really profound and beautiful experience.
Lovely. I've never been.
Oh, highly recommend it.
Gotta go. The best thing about living on a ranch that nobody tells you?
Oh my gosh, it's just the best. Everything about it is the best. I love spending time. So I say my addiction is animals, and I know I've hit rock bottom when I can't take care of them anymore.
I see.
So I am absolutely addicted to animals. It's not unlike me to go somewhere and come home with another animal, and Seamus
just like
is
you
like,
release them into the ranch,
Seamus
right?
is like, another? I'm like, yeah, surprise.
Just one more. We have the room.
Witnessing a birth is so incredible. I mean, that is like such an incredible experience, which is being with the animals, being outdoors all the time. I mean, it's just amazing.
I feel like that's what we need as humans, and it's like taken from us a
I
little
know.
bit. A moment that changed how you think about intimacy.
Oh, I remember the first time I made love to Seamus.
Like,
I cried and I was like, this is what I've been waiting for my entire life.
I love it.
I felt like he had the manual for my body. I'm like, where did you get it? And there was a deep trust that I immediately had with him. And there was a recognition that in that trust, there could be full surrender. And that surrender is what makes, again, that journey of sex.
This or that. You have a this or that on your website, which I loved. I tried not to use that. Morning sex or night sex?
Ooh, can I say daytime sex? I love sex in the middle of the day.
Great. Sex for lunch. We'll take it. Date night in or date night out?
Tied?
Tied, sure. Initiate or be pursued?
I want to be pursued, always.
Okay. Glass of wine or cold plunge?
Cold plunge.
Sunrise or sunset?
Sunset.
And that's it. Thank you so much. It was so lovely.
Yeah, thank you.
I feel like my viewers and listeners are going to learn a lot and apply immediately today start applying those lessons in their relationships, including myself. I have homework. I will link all the readings. Where can people find you if they want to reach out or they want to follow your work?
So they can check me out on Instagram at Dr. Rikki Mullen. It's dr.rikkimullen.
Amazing.
Or www.drrikkimullen.com.
Great.
Yeah, and that's probably the best way. They can, on my Instagram, they can see I have a Calendly link if they want to book a discovery call with me, a complimentary call if they're interested in working with me, or talking about coming out for an intensive or work here at the ranch, or doing weekly online sessions.
Wonderful. I love your website, and I read you have an ebook, and I think people should read it. It's
Yeah,
a really
and that's
good
another
start.
thing. If they go to the website, they absolutely will get a free copy of my ebook.
Fantastic. Thank you. Well, thank you for joining us on another episode of The Village. You can find other episodes wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for joining us. See you next time. Bye. Bye. This was the longest podcast. Do not stop. This was the longest. This was the longest episode we've done. I could have talked to you for 3 more hours.
Was it good?
But I felt pressure from the team. No, this is a 3-parter.
Yeah, we can talk about sex again.
You should have a show.
I'll talk about sex any day and every day.